Full Zone Media.
What's Dick My Cheneys? This is Behind the Bastards, a podcast where every week we talk about the great decisions being made by the Democratic Party, which this week includes really burnishing their Dick Cheney credentials. We'll see how that works out in about 3 weeks. With me to talk about, something related to this election is our lovely guest today, a contributing writer at Rolling Stone and contributing editor at Wired, Noah Shachtman. Noah, welcome to the podcast, program, show.
You gave this very confused look in between my first and last name. What was up with that?
I wrote the stuff you wanted me to, because we have a different intro for you this time. I wrote it up at the top of the piece. And so the top of the piece is just the words Peter Thiel, because that's the subject of our episodes. So at the top of my article, it says contributing writer, Rolling Stone, contributing editor at Wired, Peter Thiel. And I was like, wait a second, what? Nice. So I had to catch my brain and fix it in between.
That's incredible.
Look, I welcome my new colleague.
Yeah, Peter Thiel would be a great guest on the program, but I wouldn't do Peter Thiel for you know what? I might do Dick Cheney for the Peter Thiel episode.
How about he does me?
Yeah.
There we go.
Peter Thiel talks Noah. Oh man. Noah, how do you feel about being friendly with Dick Cheney? Is this a good decision? Is this going to work out for the Harris campaign?
I am not incredibly bullish on the old befriending war criminal campaign strategy.
I think it's in part a decision you make if you don't understand Republicans, because I grew up loving with a family that loved George W. Bush, right? He was a hero in my household as a kid, and no one liked Dick Cheney. Sure. They didn't hate him, but he was not a figure of admiration to anyone in my family. Because that was kind of the point of Dick Cheney, is he was the guy behind the scenes that you don't need to like very much. It's just confusing to me that they think there's a bunch of Republicans out there who will change their vote based on this.
It was wild at the DNC how credible it was that this rumor that George W. Bush was going to come out and speak at the DNC.
Oh, I would have lost my mind.
Everyone was like, "Oh, he's coming! He's coming!" It was more credible than Beyonce.
What's happening here?
Hey, there's still time.
There's still time. There's still time. And you know who? I don't know if he's got a chance to be worse than George W. Bush. I wouldn't say he's there yet. Is Peter Thiel. Peter Thiel. And that's who we're going to talk about when we come back from the cold open to warm things up a little bit.
This is an iHeart podcast. Guaranteed human.
Looking for your next go-to smoke shop? Stop scrolling. I've got you. Headshop.com is the #1 online smoke shop, already trusted by over 100,000 happy smokers, just like you. They've got it all. Dab rigs, vaporizers, glass bongs, smoking pipes, even THCA flower, all in one place. Need a new daily driver? Grab a smooth glass bong or a classic smoking pipe. More of a concentrate fan? Their dab rigs, e-rigs, and wax accessories are designed for smoother, harder-hitting sessions. And yes, they've even got legal THC flower. Best part? Every order ships fast and discreet, which is why thousands of smokers keep coming back. So don't waste time hopping between shops. Shop the best in dab rigs, vaporizers, glass bongs, smoking pipes, and THCA flower right now at Headshop.com, the #1 online smoke shop. Headshop.com has what you need. Check it out today. Oh, and because you're listening right now, you get 10% off your next order when you use the coupon code HSHOP at checkout. Go to headshop.com now and smoke smarter.
Then she says, "Have you seen a photo of my son?" And I'm like, "Who is this person?"
Welcome to the Boys and Girls Podcast. Arranged marriage is basically a reality show, and you're auditioning for your soulmate. And who's judging? Only your entire family? I sacrificed myself to this ancient tradition, hoping to find love the right way. And instead, I found chaos, comedy, and a lot of cringe. Listen to Boys and Girls on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
You know Roald Dahl. He thought up Willy Wonka and the BFG. But did you know he was a spy? In the new podcast, The Secret World of Roald Dahl, I'll tell you that story and much, much more.
What?
You probably won't believe it either.
Was this before he wrote his stories? It must have been. Okay, I don't think that's true.
I'm telling you, the guy was a spy.
Listen to The Secret World of Roald Dahl on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hi, listeners. I'm Anna Sinfield, the host of the Girlfriend Spotlight, and I've got some great interviews coming your way. I'm also excited to tell you that you can now get access to all episodes of season 1, 2, 3, and 4 of The Girlfriends, and every single episode of the Girlfriend Spotlight 100% ad-free, and 1 week early through the iHeart True Crime Plus subscription, available exclusively on Apple Podcasts. Plus, you'll get access to other chart-topping true crime shows you love, like Betrayal, Paper Ghosts, Piketon Massacre, The Brothers Ortiz, What Happened in Nashville, Hell and Gone, The Godmother, and more. So don't wait. Head to Apple Podcasts, search for iHeart True Crime Plus, and subscribe today.
This is Ryder Strong, and I have a new podcast called The Red Weather. In 1995, my neighbor, Anna Trainer, disappeared from a commune.
It was nature and trees and praying and drugs.
So no, I am not your guru.
And back then, I lied to everybody.
They have had this case for 30 years.
I'm going back to my hometown to uncover the truth. Listen to The Red Weather on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Noah, so we're back. Yeah. Peter Thiel. How would you describe in brief if someone is like, hey, I hear there's this Peter Thiel guy who's influencing elections or whatever. Who is he? How would you describe Peter Thiel? What would be your like elevator like, oh, that's who this guy is?
He's like the power behind like the weirdest curtain.
Yeah.
I guess is how I would describe it. Like deeply strange, deeply influential. I think would be my elevator pitch.
Yeah. I would say like he's the guy whose money is responsible for getting oh shit, what's his name? The hillbilly JD Vance started. He's the guy who, you know, he like backed Trump pretty early on in 2016. He was the billionaire who came up and endorsed him at the RNC that year and talked about how like he was supporting the Republicans as a gay man. These are all facts about Peter Thiel.
I'm really glad you're able to forget JD Vance's name. Like that feels healthy to me.
Yeah, it took a lot of work and a lot of gas station substances, but I managed to do it. It was mixing Kratom, Clamato, and then one of those Yellow Jackets truckers take together. I reached a state of what I think the Buddhists call nirvana. And yeah, all knowledge of JD Vance fled from my mind.
Dude, I'm gonna fucking throw up on my keyboard here. Yeah, I mean, it seems like it's like in the weirdo crypto fascist right. If you follow the roots down far enough,
it all comes back to Peter. Yeah. And there's a couple of ways of looking at Thiel. One of them is he is a capitalist Lenin, and what I mean by that. I'm not comparing the two like ideologically, but Lenin is a guy who grew up kind of in the upper middle class strata of his society and from an extremely early age hated the system that he lived under because his brother was killed by the Tsar and dedicated himself to its destruction. And he went about destroying that system very methodically and very effectively, right? Peter is a guy who grew up in the upper middle class strata of his culture, always seems to have hated the systems that ran the country he lived in, and dedicated himself from an early age at getting resources and then kind of methodically destroying the system, you know, which is representative democracy that he lived under. That's one way of looking at Peter. The other is that Peter is a guy who is fairly intelligent, has okay instincts, but not as good as he thinks they are. And he's just kind of been careening from point to point, making gambles that have like led him to this position where he is now backing the Republicans to the hilt in order to hopefully crumble the system of democracy enough that like he gets to rule his own little bitty city somewhere on the West Coast, right? Like one of them is Peter Thiel is the master plotter, and the other is that he's this kind of like reactive figure. And I don't actually know which is the better way to look at this guy. Some of it's got to come down to like personal preference. But he's an interesting character, and I think he's probably of all of the figures on the right now, one of the ones that it's easiest to kind of respect at an intellectual level, because he's very smart and he's succeeded in a lot of his, like the reason why the master plotter thing kind of has a lot of traction is he's been very successful in a lot of his goals over time. Like he has a degree of like focus and discipline that's fairly rare on the right.
Yeah, it's pretty weird. Isn't he also like drinking the blood of younger people or something like that?
We're going to talk about that later on in the series. It's unclear to me if he's ever drank any young people's blood, but he's definitely been accused of it and has like expressed an interest in it. I think the guy who definitely is drinking young people's blood is Brian Johnson, that like rich founder dude who's obsessed with reducing his biological age back to 17. He takes his son's blood as a supplement.
Ew, really?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, he brags about it. Yeah. He's very open about that. Peter is on the record as saying, I don't do that. He was just he's invested in a lot of companies that did anti-aging stuff, some of which like we're looking into plasma replacement, right? But it's unclear if he ever did it. And if he didn't do it, it would be because like he just didn't think it worked. He is a big advocate of taking human growth hormone as an anti-aging supplement. So I think it's one of those things where if he hasn't done the young people's blood thing, it's just because he decided the science wasn't there.
Or he's just so fucking roided out that he's just couldn't so like, sit down enough. Yeah.
Yeah. The roids have given him enough blood. There's no more room for blood in Peter's body. So, Noah, like many of the worst things on this earth, Peter Thiel began in Germany, Frankfurt to be specific, where he was born on October 11th, 1967. His father, Klaus, was a chemical engineer who the very next year, 68, got hired by a consulting firm that specialized in heavy industry, including oil and gas refining. The founder of the company, Arthur G. McKee, had owned a series of steel foundries in the Cleveland area, where the Thiels moved in 1968. So now at this point, and I think this is probably clear to most of our listeners, in 1968, Cleveland is just a series of river fires with some suburbs attached, right? Like it's not the city we know and tolerate today. It's nothing but the Cuyahoga burning and a couple of soot-drenched houses. And the reason the Cuyahoga is always on fire is guys like Arthur McKee, who runs steel foundries, you know? So that is Peter grows up with his dad kind of working in the destroying the planet industry. Like he's an oil and gas man working for an industrial magnate in fucking Cleveland. So Klaus works for a firm in Cleveland for a couple of years while he gets his graduate degree. And in 1971, when Peter was 4, his parents have a second child, Patrick. Now, Thiel's biographer, Max Chafkin, author of The Contrarian, which is a book that will be a sizable source for this, although I do have some disagreement. I think Chafkin's a very good writer, good biographer. There's a couple of areas where I disagree with him that we'll talk about here. But yeah, he has described Klaus and Peter's mom, Suzanne, as fanatical Republicans who were absolutely gaga for Nixon. That may be true. You know, Chafkin certainly knows more about this than me. However, Peter disagrees with that characterization of his parents. He doesn't seem to have considered them to have been fanatical Republicans or religious extremists. And Chafkin also kind of paints them as hardcore Christian conservatives. Peter is an outspoken Christian. It's unclear to me, again, if this is just Peter disliking the description of himself and his parents as extremists, or if this is that Chafkin, maybe doesn't have all of the context. We don't get a lot of detail about Thiel's parents, so it's not perfectly clear, right? Chafkin describes his father as cold, bordering on cruel, at times. Again, this is a characterization Peter would disagree with, at least publicly. In terms of like stories that paint that picture of his dad as cruel, I don't see a lot of really good detailed evidence about it. The story that Chafkin cites as kind of evidence of how cold and cruel Peter's dad was is a story that Peter tells a lot to biographers. I've seen this, or to interviewers. I've seen this story recounted in a couple of different articles that interviewed Peter before Chafkin's biography came out. And the story is that one day when Peter was a little kid, like maybe 4 or 5, he was looking at a rug in the family home that was made from a cowhide. And he asked his dad, where did this rug come from? And Klaus matter-of-factly explained that it was made from a dead cow. Peter asked, like, what does it mean that something's dead? And his dad told him, quote, death happens to all animals, all people. It will happen to me one day. It will happen to you one day. And Chafkin describes this as a moment of like brutal honesty, and he kind of insinuates that it may have done some damage to Peter, writing that he, quote, would return to the cow and the brutal finality of the thing again and again, even in middle age. Now, it does seem to be accurate that Peter, this stuck in his mind. I just don't know that I consider that a brutal description of death. That seems like, kind of just factual, right? Like I had a conversation with my dad about death that wasn't all that different from this, right? Like it happens to everything. It'll happen to me. It'll happen to you. Like how else do you explain death to a kid, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. That feels like like a pretty weak antecedent for everything that's about to transpire.
I think what's going on here is that Peter is obsessed with death and dying, right? He's put a huge amount of money into like reversing aging and anti-senescence and all this kind of stuff. So like he clearly is a guy who's obsessed with his own mortality. And like you're looking for evidence of that in his childhood. And he does tell this story. He told the New Yorker in 2011 that this was a, quote, very, very disturbing day. So obviously this does stick in his mind, but I don't know that that makes the case that his dad is like cold. Because this, I just don't see it from that anecdote. Obviously that's one anecdote. We're talking about a whole childhood. So that doesn't mean that he was not cold. I just don't, I feel like what we may get from the fact that this story fucks Peter up so much says less about his dad and more about like who Peter is as a person. Because I think most of us have this experience and like don't grow up dedicated to conquering mortality. We're just kind of like, oh yeah, everything dies. All right, well, I better figure out something I'm going to do with my life, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like gas station drugs. That was my decision, which I think if Peter had gotten into that, just buy some of these trucker pills, Peter, Yeah. Yeah. They'll keep you alive forever as well as HGH will. So anyway, Peter has never made peace with death, or what he calls the ideology of the inevitability of the death of every individual. I also love that description.
Ideology?
The ideology. It's not an ideology, man. It's just a fact.
What?
That's like seeing some people who are like staying back from a cliff's edge on a windy day and be like, "Oh, you've fallen for the ideology of dying in a fall. Come on."
The ideology of the inevitability of the death of every individual.
Yeah. I think I've had conversations with anti-seatbelt guys about like the ideology of nanny state culture. And it's like, no, man, I just don't want to die in a car crash.
This dude's all libertarian, right?
Oh, yeah, as all hell. Well, at least nowadays, I don't know if you'd call it that, but he definitely comes out of libertarianism. Yeah.
And when I think of libertarians, I think of like people who never evolved past like second semester freshman dorm room ideology, and that feels very much like the ideology of the inevitability of death feels very like third bong hit freshman year dorm room. Yeah, dude. Deep thoughts.
Yeah, I agree with that. You know, what I will say for libertarians, I always have to give a little bit of pushback just because of where I come out. There, you've got your two kinds. You've got your like dorm room, I'm going to read fucking Murray Rothbard and basically become a fascist whenever anyone suggests I pay my fair share in taxes, libertarians, which Peter is. No. My kind, the kind that I respect are, I wouldn't say I'm there now, but I do have a degree of respect and love for like after the big hurricane in North Carolina, you had like several dozen guys who own their own helicopters and often built their own helicopters who like flew in just because they're like helicopter libertarians. I like my helicopter libertarians, where it's like I just don't trust the state, so I built my own helicopter to do disaster rescue. Those guys are fine.
Those guys. Although, are those the same guys that also were the militia that tried to interfere with FEMA
No, because those guys were in trucks. Those guys were in trucks. Okay. That might be yet another different kind of libertarian.
You got your helicopter libertarians and your truck libertarians.
Yeah. We're very very pro helicopter libertarian in this house.
No, those guys are cool.
Those guys are fine.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's Peter's like kind of inciting incident, right? If you're making the Peter Thiel movie, you started with his dad explaining death to him while looking at this cowhide rug. Now, shortly after that conversation, his dad decides to move the family away from Cleveland, usually a good decision, and live every engineer's dream, which is, of course, helping South Africa build a uranium mine. You know, what engineer doesn't want to live that? So the Thiel family moves to South Africa, I mean, they're technically in South Africa. Peter's parents sent him to an expensive whites-only private school called Pridwin. According to the school's website, it was founded in 1923 as a non-denominational school rooted in Christian ethics and values. Today, the Pridwin website prominently features numerous stock photos of non-white kids. So it does seem like maybe things have been forced to move forward there. But when Peter went there, it would have taught racial separation as an obvious good and a necessity, right? We're talking South Africa in the 70s, right?
Yeah.
After Pridwin, Peter went to a German language public school. He was a good student. He always does well in school, but these are not happy years for him, at least as Chafkin paints it. Quote, a picture from that era shows a sullen boy in shorts, knickers, and a tie, carrying an adult-sized briefcase. A grade school classmate in Namibia, George Erb, recalled Thiel as smart but withdrawn. He had that distinct, striking, smart look about him, almost like he seemed bored, Erb said. We didn't really mingle a lot with Peter in school, though. We always knew the miners' kids would not stay long in town. Now, as he noted here, I said that they moved to South Africa. They are, though, actually not in South Africa. They're in Namibia, which a big chunk of Namibia is governed and run by South Africa at this point, right? At the time, a lot of what we call Namibia today was known to South Africans as Southwest Africa, and it was governed under a military occupation, as if it were essentially the little brother of the apartheid state. The whole reason that South Africa has a uranium mine comes down to environmental regulations in Western nations around this period. Some of the very earliest waves of uranium had been mined in places like the US and Australia, but pretty quickly, once it becomes clear that we're going to need a lot of uranium, it also becomes clear that like uranium mining is really bad for the environment. So we'd better do that a lot in Africa, right? Like actually King Leopold's old colony in the Congo becomes a major source of uranium mining. And Namibia in this period becomes the fourth largest global producer of uranium during like the Cold War, when we are using up quite a lot of the stuff. So that's why South Africa is a big part of why South Africa is so hesitant to give up their occupation of Namibia, is like Namibia has a shitload of uranium and South Africa wants that for several reasons, none of them good. Now, the managing and engineering staff at the mine where Klaus worked was white. The workforce were largely migrants on one-year contracts. For white families, this was a good job. You had good access to medical care. You had nice houses. You're basically living in a company town that is built for the white employees of this mine. There's a country club there. There's quality schools. Things are a lot uglier for the contract workers who are being brought in to do a lot of the heavy lifting at the mine. Now, much of this ugliness came from the fact that South Africa was not allowed to be in southwest Namibia, right? They are not supposed to be occupying this chunk of Namibia. The UN had ordered them to leave in 1966, but by the time the Thiels moved into the country, South Africa had yet to move their troops out. This is like 1971 or 2, right? So South Africa, they've overstayed their visa by quite a while, but you don't really need a visa if you have enough guns.
Yeah. This whole thing is fucking grim, man.
Yeah.
It's apartheid uranium mine is just fucking grim.
Peter's childhood is in an apartheid uranium mine.
Like, I thought Elon Musk had like kind of like supervillain origin story with the emerald mine, but the uranium mine really trumps this.
Yeah. Honestly, bro, I'll take an emerald mine over this any day of the fucking week. So in 1973, the ICC, the International Criminal Court, upheld that UN ruling and said, again, South Africa, you've got to leave Namibia. This is not your country. What are you doing there? To which South Africa says, we are getting a lot of uranium and we're not going to leave. This leads to sanctions against the sale of minerals from mines in occupied Namibia. Sanctions that are ignored by much of the West. And I'm going to just read about that via a quote I found on the website Mining Sea. The decree warned that anyone found extracting and selling minerals from Namibia would be held liable. Beneficiaries to Namibia's minerals, including Britain and the United States, except Sweden, did not honor the decree when uranium production from Rossing would satisfy Britain's 10% demand. So because uranium was so needed for this buildup, basically a lot of the West was like, no, fuck what the UN says. We're going to keep paying South Africa for their uranium because we really need it, right? Tale as old as time. Now, the company that ran the mine, where Klaus worked as a contractor, was called Rio Tinto. And they had, you're not going to be surprised to hear that this illegal uranium mine company has an evil history, but they have like a comically evil history.
Yeah, like I feel like I've heard that name before.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. So in the late 1930s, Rio Tinto had called on Francisco Franco to use his soldiers to crush left-wing miners protesting against bad working conditions in Spain. The head of the company at the time, Sir Auckland Geddes, which is such an evil mine owner's name. What an amazing evil mine owner name. Sir Auckland Geddes, Jesus. Geddes bragged that, quote, miners found guilty of troublemaking are court-martialed and shot. Big fan of Franco, the leaders of Rio Tinto. As another interesting side note, Noah, Rio Tinto was also a major source of raw materials for the Nazi rearmament campaign. These are the guys that build the Wehrmacht back up into fighting shape. Thank God, where would we be without Rio Tinto?
Oh my God. It's like LexCorp or something.
Yes.
It's incredible.
Yeah. Now, by the early 70s, there were no more Nazis to arm, so Rio set about finding their next best equivalent, which is, of course, apartheid South Africa, right? Now, since they're running an illegal uranium mine in occupied Namibia, they're like, why not go full fascist? And they decide to operate their facilities in Namibia like a concentration camp. And I'm going to quote from an article by the London Mining Network here. Black workers constructing the Rossing uranium mine lived in appalling conditions in temporary camps, which researchers found akin to slavery. By akin to slavery, it means that actually leaving work for any meaning, but being for any reason, but being dismissed by your manager was a crime. Workers who misplaced or forgot their ID badge could be jailed. Now, the fact that someone might get hired to consult at such a mine doesn't imply that they were involved with setting up or executing any of these policies, but it does suggest that one was broadly fine with them, as Max Chafkin writes. A contract laborer on the construction project, the project Klaus's company was helping to oversee, who said workers had not been told they were building a uranium mine and were thus unaware of the risks of radiation. The only clue had been that white employees would hand out wages from behind glass, seemingly trying to avoid contamination themselves. The report mentioned workers dying like flies in 1976 while the mine was under construction. So
this is so bad.
This is pretty evil. Pretty evil.
So it's an illegal apartheid uranium mining concentration camp.
Yeah, that's Peter's dad's job and some of his earliest memories as a kid.
And he's disturbed by like Bessie the cow getting
He's
killed
disturbed
to be
by
a
cows
rogue?
dying?
What?
I don't know, Peter, if you want to end death, the first step might be ending illegal uranium mines.
Right.
If you just care about death as a concept.
Dude, I cannot believe how cartoonish this is.
It's so funny. It's like the funniest backstory he could have. Just being the guy he is, coming from this as a background. Like a lot of these guys, like Elon Musk, there's this period of time in Musk's backstory. He's like, oh, well, he is this kid who's moved around a bunch. His family sucks. His dad's this abusive monster. He's bullied as a kid. It's a really sad, like I can see how he, I can see how a couple of different kinds of kid could have come out of this. Some of them who would have been a lot better than Musk was, right? Maybe he wasn't always destined to be the kind of guy he is. With Thiel, you're like, oh yeah, no, this childhood was tailor-made to produce Peter Thiel.
Yeah, totally.
You know what else was tailor-made to produce Peter Thiel, Noah?
I bet I'm about to find out.
Yeah, the sponsors of our show are attempting to breed clones of Peter Thiel in a tank. It's kind of like that the fourth Alien movie, Alien Resurrection, down to the fact that they are mixing Peter Thiel's genes with Sigourney Weaver. So let's see what happens, everybody. We'll see what happens.
Looking for your next go-to smoke shop? Stop scrolling. I've got you. Headshop.com is the #1 online smoke shop, already trusted by over 100,000 happy smokers, just like you. They've got it all. Dab rigs, vaporizers, glass bongs, smoking pipes, even THCA flower, all in one place. Need a new daily driver? Grab a smooth glass bong or a classic smoking pipe. More of a concentrate fan? Their dab rigs, e-rigs, and wax accessories are designed for smoother, harder hitting sessions. And yes, they've even got legal THC flower. Best part? Every order ships fast and discreet, which is why thousands of smokers keep coming back. So don't waste time hopping between shops. Shop the best in dab rigs, vaporizers, glass bongs, smoking pipes, and THCA flower right now at headshop.com, the #1 online smoke shop. Headshop.com has what you need. Check it out today. Oh, and because you're listening right now, you get 10% off your next order when you use the coupon code HSHOP at checkout. Go to headshop.com now and smoke smarter.
Almost 30 years together, 4 kids, and some of reality TV's most unforgettable moments, we know a thing or two about living life out loud. We're taking you behind the scenes in our new podcast, Between Us, with me, Heather Dubrow.
And me, Terry Dubrow. Between Us isn't about perfect lighting or curated Instagram grids.
It's the unfiltered, behind-closed-doors conversations you wish you could eavesdrop on. Equal parts smart, funny, and a little bit scandalous.
Every week, Heather will bring you an unapologetic take on the headlines, the trends, and the cultural moments everyone's texting about.
And Terry will deliver insider beauty, health, and wellness insights you won't find on TikTok.
Together, we'll tell the stories, spill the secrets, and share the hacks that keep life, marriage, and everything in between feeling fresh and fun.
We may live in a gated community, but there's zero gatekeeping here.
And plenty of did they just say that moments?
Listen to Between Us on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Segregation in the day, integration at night.
When segregation was the law, one mysterious black club owner had his own rules.
We didn't worry about what went on outside. It was like stepping in another world.
Inside Charlie's Place, black and white people danced together. But not everyone was happy about it.
You saw the KKK?
Yeah, they were just dressed up in their uniform.
The KKK set out to raid Charlie, take him away from here.
Charlie was an example of power. They had to crush him.
From Atlas Obscura, Rococo Punch, and Visit Myrtle Beach comes Charlie's Place, a story that was nearly lost to time. Until now. Listen to Charlie's Place on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Usually on This Podcast Will Kill You, we talk about the diseases, infections, and biological threats that can make us really sick.
But right now, we're doing something a little different.
We're stepping back and looking at what the human body needs to keep going.
When you consider what we know about sleep in humans, there's one rule that comes out. We are predictably unpredictable sleepers.
We're talking about why sleep works the way it does, why our bodies don't follow neat rules, and why modern life makes rest so hard to come by.
The second half of our series takes us to the digestive system with a multi-part series on what happens after we eat. Okay, I just have to say that all of my favorite words apparently are digestive words.
Sphincter, peristalsis, duodenum. It's fascinating, it's funny, and it matters so much more than you think.
Episodes of our new series run from January 20th through February 17th, with new episodes every Tuesday on the Exactly Right Network.
Listen to This Podcast Will Kill You as part of the Exactly Right Network on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Segregation in the day, integration at night.
When segregation was the law, one mysterious black club owner had his own rules.
We didn't worry about what went on outside. It was like stepping in another world.
Inside Charlie's Place, black and white people danced together. But not everyone was happy about it.
You saw the KKK?
Yeah, they was dressed up in their uniform.
The KKK set out to raid Charlie, take him away from here.
Charlie was an example of power. They had to crush him.
From Atlas Obscura, Rococo Punch, and Visit Myrtle Beach comes Charlie's Place, a story that was nearly lost to time. Until now. Listen to Charlie's Place on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
We're back. And in the time that we were off air, the Peter Thiel Sigourney Weaver clones escaped containment in our sponsor's orbital base. Things do not seem to be going well. Sorry.
Grave error.
That was probably predictable. Anyway, yeah. We'll keep you updated on the situation. So, we're talking about uranium mining in South Africa, which is getting South Africa in trouble. And it's one of those things where if it had just been about the money South Africa could make exporting uranium, it probably wouldn't have been worthwhile to piss off the whole international community to keep this mine open. But that's not the only reason why South Africa wants a uranium mine. A big part of why they insisted on keeping this thing operational was that they are an unpopular apartheid government that is in the process of becoming a global pariah. They are dealing with something of an existential PR crisis because of all of like the racism and violence that the world is watching them do. And the white rulers of the country decided the best way for them to gain long-term security for the regime was to get nuclear weapons, even if they had to break international law to do so, right? And South Africa does eventually construct a handful of very illegal nukes, right? They are not supposed to have these internationally. No one's supposed to be allowed to be arming themselves with new nukes. South Africa makes their nukes. And it does not, as you may be aware, keep the apartheid regime in power. You know, the government does in fact fall. And in a kind of unique historical case, before the government hands over power to the ANC, which is, you know, the party that takes over as apartheid goes out, they disassemble all of their nuclear weapons. To this day, this makes South Africa the only nation to have ever made nuclear weapons and given them up voluntarily. Obviously, Ukraine had nuclear weapons when the USSR crumbled and gave those up, but South Africa actually like makes their own nuclear weapons independently and then disassembles them and stops being a nuclear power. And that's a unique thing in history. Although they do it, I think, mainly for reasons of racism.
It's still pretty wild. I've never heard that before.
Yeah, it's an interesting story. So while Peter's dad was, I don't know how you want to parse out his complicity here, but he is adjacent to some very bad things, right? While his dad's doing this, Peter himself gets very little that seems to be good from his 2.5-3 years in Africa. He mostly claims to have played alone a lot near the family house. He started to develop a habit for competitive chess, and he became a voracious leader. After less than 3 years away, the family decides they just haven't had enough Cleveland, and they move back. Then as soon as they're back in Cleveland, they're like, oh shit, Cleveland is still not a great place to live. The river's have not stopped being on fire, so they move one last time to the Bay Area. Their specific final residence is Foster City, which is just northwest of San Jose and south of San Francisco proper. It's a fairly affluent town, and in the late 1970s, Thiel's family seems like they probably would have qualified as upper middle class, right? And this is what you tend to see with the first and second generation of tech industry giants. Guys like Gates and Jobs all come from or move to similar parts of California, and they're all kind of at a similar level of family affluence, right? Their parents are not like rich, they're not going to inherit generational wealth, but their parents have enough money to shower their kids with attention and educational opportunities that really weren't available before, and in part because of some of the decisions guys like this make, aren't going to be available after, you know? At least not to as many kids. Now, in terms of the parenting situation, because Bill Gates's parents, doting, absolutely like obsessed with his development and health. Steve's parents, again, doting, like really, really like caring parents who were very much focused on their child doing well. It is unclear to me how much attention Peter gets. This is kind of an open question. It's left as an open question in Chafkin's book. Peter does not seem to embrace like the claims that his parents were very strict or fanatical conservatives, but we also get very little of them in his stories, right? Which is very different from like Steve Jobs told a lot of stories about his parents, right? And so did Gates. So I don't really know if this is a case of, he didn't want to say much about his parents, that this is an area of insecurity for him, or if it's just he's not a guy who's super talkative about his background, which he definitely isn't. That may just explain it. But it does seem that his parents are not kind of central to his feelings or ambitions in the same way that they really seem to have been for a lot of other like tech industry icons that came up at a similar place and period. We do know as a child, Peter Thiel is a massive nerd. He is one of the first wave of like really big nerds. And he's particularly a fantasy nerd for his kind of fantasy and sci-fi. He reads The Lord of the Rings as a little kid. He falls in love with Tolkien. He would later claim that he memorized the Lord of the Rings trilogy, which I suspect is probably overstating things. That's a lot to memorize.
Yeah, that's like 3,000 words. 3,000 pages.
Yeah, 3,000 pages. Yeah, that might be a little much. I don't know how much I believe that, but
did he just memorize the English or the Elvish and the Orcish too?
Did he have the Elvish down? Does he know the Black speech by heart?
Maybe that's all he speaks at home. Maybe that's why he couldn't talk about his folks that much.
Yeah. The very few journalists know the Black speech. As you might imagine, from a kid who at least probably memorized passages from The Lord of the Rings, Peter gets bullied a lot, right? Not super surprising from this kid. He's also very small and skinny, and according to one peer, he gets pushed around a lot as a little kid. This may have had something to do with what seems to have been a flair for escapism. In addition to loving Tolkien, Peter is one of the very first Dungeons and Dragons players, right? Because D&D has just come out while he is a kid, and he and his friends are playing it while it is very new. They played every single weekend, and this may have caused a degree of like conflict with his parents, because there are at least some stories that his parents, he couldn't play at his house because his parents, being very strict Christians, thought that D&D was evil. Again, this is one of those things is that totally accurate? I don't know. He definitely played a lot of D&D. It may have been a kind of thing that he had to like skirt around his family, because it is, and there's this thing that you get from Peter that everyone will say about him, which is that like he's a habitual contrarian. Whatever people are doing, he has to be doing the opposite. There's this big moral panic against Dungeons and Dragons at the time. It very much fits in with that he would want to be playing this game that a lot of people in his life and like maybe even his parents consider to be evil. That is very like fitting with the guy Peter Thiel is. Like whatever the people around him are saying is bad, that's what Peter's going to want to do.
Right.
Yeah. Outside of that, his main hobby seems to have been chess. He's extremely good at this. He was generally ranked #1 by his school chess club. He plays a lot of speed chess. He probably could have been a professional chess guy, but he has there's some quotes he makes later where he's like, I had to choose between chess and everything else in life, right? I just get too obsessed with it. George Packer, writing for the New Yorker, summarizes, his chess kit was decorated with a sticker carrying the motto, "Born to Win." On the rare occasions when he lost in college, he swept the pieces off the board. He would say, show me a good loser and I'll show you a loser. So maybe not a guy you want to play with, right?
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, a little bit of a dick. This is the kind of guy who, I don't know, again, I'm a big believer in the fact that everyone who's proud of their chess performance should get into the real game of skill, Warhammer 40,000. You know, show us your real skill, Peter. Paint some fucking orcs.
Do you have Born to Win stickered on your Warhammer?
I have it actually tattooed. You can't see it. The camera blots out my tattoos, but I've got like one of those throat tattoos. I got a stick and poke when I was in prison that just says Born to Win, and it's got a picture of an orc on it. Yeah.
Congrats.
Yeah. It's good. It really makes me popular at the gaming store with the 14-year-olds. So Chafkin has my favorite story of Peter in his chess phase because it is the one that makes me actually kind of hopeful that we can beat this guy eventually. Quote, once at a tournament, he was playing a scrimmage match for fun in between games and seemed to be only half paying attention. His opponent was inexperienced and, not aware of what was happening, put Peter in check. Then he realized, to both of their surprise, that it was checkmate. Peter became visibly distraught and was unable to regain his composure for the rest of the tournament and lost the rest of the matches he played. A defeat, even a meaningless one, was too much to handle.
Huh.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's a little hopeful there, a little bit of motivation for you kids.
Yeah. Maybe it wasn't so Born to Win.
Yeah. So among the nerds, Peter was king. He was the most academically gifted of his friends, and I suspect was the best at doing things like cooking up overpowered characters in Dungeons and Dragons. He had a fantastic memory, and he expounded upon different short stories and novels by guys like Asimov and Clarke with a faculty that would have embarrassed most adults. He's the kind of guy who can quote passages of stories he likes from memory. One of Peter's nerdy peers said that he and others were, quote, in awe of Thiel, but added, I don't know that he had any close friends. So he's got some peers, but maybe not a lot of people that he actually entrusts any pieces of himself to in any meaningful way, right? Again, a lonely person in a lot of ways. Peter is generally described by the kids he spent time around the way wizards were in Peter's favorite fantasy novels, as this mysterious figure who can do great and terrifying things, but who's also fundamentally separate from all of the people around him, right?
That's your characterization? You're calling him a wizard, or he called himself a wizard?
No. That's just kind of my description based on what other kids said about Peter, right? That he's we're in awe of him. He could do all these amazing things, but we didn't really understand him. He seemed to be someone who was fundamentally separate. That's kind of like the way Gandalf is written in The Lord of the Rings, right? Wow. Wizards are these mysterious and kind of frightening figures that you can't ever really get that, they're kind of unknowable in certain senses, right? That's just kind of the way other kids talked about Peter.
Seems more Saruman than Gandalf.
He's definitely, he's going to build a company named Palantir. So that's probably a fair note, Noah. As he became a teenager, the bullying changed from physical violence to sillier shit that was also calculated to make him feel unwelcome and othered. One example would be that a group of kids frequently stole for sale signs from around the neighborhood and set them up on Peter's lawn. And then they would harass him about it the next day at school, being like, hey, when are you moving? Right? And that actually legitimately does suck, Peter, if you're listening. That's a really shitty thing those kids did to you. I'm sorry. That's a bummer. You can that's kind of probably more devastating than the physical violence. People stealing lawn signs to make it clear we want you and your family to leave. I can see how that feeds into a guy becoming like Peter is. By the time the high school years come around, you've got this kind of misanthropic genius who spends his free time escaping reality and competing, in order to show everyone how smart he is, right? When the only times he wants to engage with other people is when he can beat them in a contest of wits. Otherwise, he likes to kind of focus on his fantasy worlds. One friend described his general attitude as "fuck you world." Now, I think we all knew or were to some degree kids like that, right? This is going to sound very familiar. As a kid who grew up bullied and nerdy, aspects of this are familiar to me.
Sure.
Peter also, it's interesting, maintains this attitude while managing to be the best student in his school, right? He is going to be the valedictorian. He is an exceptional student academically. So he has both this kind of anger at normal kids and the world around him, and also this attitude that's reinforced by the social structures of his world that he's better than everyone else in an important way. Now, his classmates interviewed by Chafkin seem to suggest that Peter and kind of everyone at their school are obsessed with getting this is a school where the kids, their parents are high achievers. Everyone is obsessed with getting into good colleges. This was seen as the path to success at the time. And Peter's parents, if they were strict, were probably pushing him hard to get the best grades possible so that he could get into the best school, right? This is going to be important later. He grows up being told by all of the authority figures in his life what matters most is getting into a good college, right? That is the number one priority you have to have as a kid. I don't know, when I went to school, that was the priority that was really rammed home to me by my parents. So I don't have trouble believing that this is the case for Peter. And he's going to get very angry at this later in his life. This is going to be a major motivating factor in his life. The idea that he was forced to value higher education, which he fundamentally thinks is not a valuable thing in the same way that his parents did. And he's really angry about it. He's kind of never forgiven the concept of academia for this. He graduates in 1985 as the valedictorian of San Mateo High. During the later years in public school, he had moved on from Tolkien and Asimov to Ayn Rand. This kind of helps nurse the strain of vigorous anti-communist sentiment that would have, this would have been a part of his upbringing anyway. We're talking Silicon Valley in the 70s, it's a lot of defense industry stuff is out there. It is not a radical left hotbed. So he probably didn't need the Ayn Rand to make him into an anti-communist, but this definitely makes him into a libertarian anti-communist. During one article in 2011, he described his ideology as so strictly libertarian that for a time he was against all government spending. Which he's not now. He's very supportive of the government spending money to research how rich people can live longer. So that's good. It's nice to see that people can grow.
Yeah. It's an evolution.
Yeah. You know who else has evolved since the last time we talked about them? Is the sponsors of this podcast. They're moving past their mistakes of 20 minutes or so ago, losing control of that orbital habitat to the Peter Thiel clones. And they're moving on, to greater pastures, blowing up that orbital habitat primarily. So we'll check back in with them later.
Looking for your next go-to smoke shop? Stop scrolling. I've got you. Headshop.com is the #1 online smoke shop, already trusted by over 100,000 happy smokers, just like you. They've got it all. Dab rigs, vaporizers, glass bongs, smoking pipes, even THCA flower, all in one place. Need a new daily driver? Grab a smooth glass bong or a classic smoking pipe. More of a concentrate fan? Their dab rigs, e-rigs, and wax accessories are designed for smoother, harder hitting sessions. And yes, they've even got legal THC flower. Best part? Every order ships fast and discreet, which is why thousands of smokers keep coming back. So don't waste time hopping between shops. Shop the best in dab rigs, vaporizers, glass bongs, smoking pipes, and THCA flower right now at Headshop.com, the #1 online smoke shop. Headshop.com has what you need. Check it out today. Oh, and because you're listening right now, you get 10% off your next order when you use the coupon code HSHOP at checkout. Go to headshop.com now and smoke smarter.
Almost 30 years together, 4 kids, and some of reality TV's most unforgettable moments. we know a thing or two about living life out loud. We're taking you behind the scenes in our new podcast, Between Us, with me, Heather Dubrow.
And me, Terry Dubrow. Between Us isn't about perfect lighting or curated Instagram grids.
It's the unfiltered, behind closed doors conversations you wish you could eavesdrop on. Equal parts smart, funny, and a little bit scandalous.
Every week, Heather will bring you an unapologetic take on the headlines, the trends, and the cultural moments everyone's texting about.
And Terry will deliver insider beauty, health, and wellness insights you won't find on TikTok.
Together, we'll tell the stories, spill the secrets, and share the hacks that keep life, marriage, and everything in between feeling fresh and fun.
We may live in a gated community, but there's zero gatekeeping here.
And plenty of did they just say that moments?
Listen to Between Us on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Segregation in the day, integration at night.
When segregation was the law, one mysterious black club owner had his own rules.
We didn't worry about what went on outside. It was like stepping in another world.
Inside Charlie's place, black and white people danced together. But not everyone was happy about it.
You saw the KKK?
Yeah, they was dressed up in their uniform.
The KKK set out to raid Charlie, take him away from here.
Charlie was an example of power. They had to crush him.
From Atlas Obscura, Rococo Punch, and Visit Myrtle Beach comes Charlie's Place, a story that was nearly lost to time. Until now. Listen to Charlie's Place on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Usually on This Podcast Will Kill You, we talk about the diseases, infections, and biological threats that can make us really sick.
But right now, we're doing something a little different.
We're stepping back and looking at what the human body needs to keep going.
When you consider what we know about sleep in humans, there's one rule that comes out. We are predictably unpredictable sleepers.
We're talking about why sleep works the way it does, why our bodies don't follow neat rules, and why modern life makes rest so hard to come by.
The second half of our series takes us to the digestive system with a multi-part series on what happens after we eat.
Okay, I just have to say that all of my favorite words apparently are digestive words.
Sphincter, peristalsis, duodenum. It's fascinating, it's funny, and it matters so much more than you think.
Episodes of our new series run from January 20th through February 17th, with new episodes every Tuesday on the Exactly Right Network.
Listen to This Podcast Will Kill You as part of the Exactly Right Network on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Segregation in the day, integration at night.
When segregation was the law, one mysterious black club owner had his own rules.
We didn't worry about what went on outside. It was like stepping in another world.
Inside Charlie's Place, black and white people danced together. But not everyone was happy about it.
You saw the KKK?
Yeah, they was dressed up in their uniform.
The KKK set out to raid Charlie, take him away from here.
Charlie was an example of power. They had to crush him.
From Atlas Obscura, Rococo Punch, and Visit Myrtle Beach comes Charlie's Place, a story that was nearly lost to time. Until now. Listen to Charlie's Place on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
And we're back. Noah, have you seen Alien Resurrection? Are these Alien Resurrection jokes hitting? I don't know if anyone's seen that movie.
Remember, I cannot recall this Alien movie, and I thought I even saw
great.
one of the. Like, I feel like I saw some spin-off with like a Roman name, like.
Oh God,
Prometheus, is that a
Prometheus? Name? Yes, no, that's one of the ones that was made by Ridley Scott again, though. See,
I don't know, man.
This was the fourth Alien was the Alien movie that was written by Joss Whedon as kind of a backdoor pilot for Firefly. It's a very strange movie, but it's got Ron Perlman in it.
I don't know what to say in response to any of these words.
No one knows what to say in response to Alien Resurrection, other than it's the fourth movie in the Alien series. So, one particular... Yeah. Probably shouldn't have hung so many jokes on the fourth Alien movie. If you're a kid, go watch it.
I feel like if you're hanging alien jokes, it's got to end with, game over, man. And, that's kind of.
I am the Hudson in this series. Like I'm realizing that I've gotten us into we're in this horrible disaster that I'm not going to get out of, and now I'm just firing my gun blindly at the ceiling, trying to escape.
Noah and I both have no idea what you're talking about, but someone in the subreddit.
Well, he just brought up Hudson.
Someone in the subreddit will be really excited that you're just keeping going on this.
Oh my God.
Someone.
It really is game over, man. Game over.
Game over.
Unbelievable. So one particularly baffling segment from the Chafkin book involves Peter's senior yearbook quote, which he credited to The Hobbit. "The greatest adventure is what lies ahead. Today and tomorrow are yet to be said." Now, that seems like something a nerdy kid would do. And that's a perfectly fine yearbook quote. I would go so far as to say maybe even a little like stereotypical. But when it comes up in Chafkin's book, Chafkin actually, this is one of the areas where I think his analysis of Peter is a little unfair. Here's what Chafkin writes about Peter putting that quote in his yearbook. Years later, he'd say that he memorized the entire passage, which continues, "The chances, the changes are all yours to make. The mold of your life is in your hands to break." It would become, in a way, the motto of his life, though it was still at this point a confused life. The passage is not, in fact, from Tolkien, who wrote The Hobbit, as well as the Lord of the Rings trilogy, books Thiel obsessed over. It's from a theme song written by Jules Bass, creative genius behind the 1980s cartoon Thundercats, for the animated version of The Hobbit, which came out in 1977. Now, I think maybe because it's not clear to me that Peter was being dishonest or making a mistake. Like if he attributed that quote to The Hobbit, that quote is from The Hobbit. It's from the Hobbit movie, but like, I don't know if you'd necessarily care to be that specific about this in like your fucking yearbook, right? This isn't an essay you're writing. I think like Chafkin kind of wanted to point this out as maybe like Thiel not really being a Tolkien fan or something like that. It's kind of unclear to me. I don't think it's particularly weird that like an 18-year-old kid would credit the Hobbit animated movie for a quote as The Hobbit instead of like specifying that like it was not the book. I think that may be a little bit like reaching, but anyway, I guess you could see this as evidence that Peter wasn't a big Tolkien fan and just liked the animated movies. But to be honest, if you are quoting from the fucking Hobbit animated movie of 1977, you're a pretty big Tolkien nerd, right? It was not a wildly popular movie, although better than the Hobbit movies we would later get, arguably. So. Yeah.
So there you go. I don't know. This whole thing seems like nerd. Like
I think it's a little bit of nerd fighting. Yeah.
Oh, you're not actually memorizing the books. Yeah. You're memorizing. No,
that was from the Hobbit animated movie. How dare you?
It's not even canon.
And he brings up that the song was written by the Thundercats guy to kind of like make it more. It's like, man, the Thundercats was fine. Like, we don't need to be shitting on the Thundercats here because of what Peter Thiel does in 2016.
The Thundercats were incredible. What are you talking about?
Come on, man.
Lion-O?
Come on, Chafkin. Look, I like Chafkin. I just disagree with him here. So,
wait, there was a Hobbit movie? I thought there was only a Lord of the Rings movie.
There's definitely a Hobbit movie.
There were three.
No, we are not talking about the Peter Jackson Hobbit movie, Sophie. We are talking about the animated Hobbit movie, which is wonderful.
I did watch that one. I did watch that one.
Oh yeah, Noah. I'm gonna recommend like half a hit of acid and just sink down into your couch and let it happen to you.
Robert, from what I know of you, you would recommend a half a hit of acid in literally anything.
It keeps my hands steady when I'm driving, especially if I've got a trailer. I don't trust anyone who tows on less than half a hit of acid. That's my advice, kids out there. Yeah, going shooting. Oh man, you don't even need tracers. The acid provides that. So anyway, whatever. I don't need. We don't need to continue down this Peter Thiel Hobbit
I also just
argument.
think like reading into somebody's yearbook quote, overreading it is like a little much.
Yeah, maybe Peter did specify the animated version, and then the yearbook editor was like, "No, like we'll just say The Hobbit. It's fine."
It's like, who puts that much thought into their yearbook quote? Come on.
Yeah, it's a yearbook. Come on. So a much better story of Peter actually being a weirdo, which Chafkin does also share, comes from one of his few female friends who apparently shared with Peter at some point that she'd been the result of an unplanned pregnancy, right? That her parents had her without meaning to. Peter wrote in her yearbook, quote, "I could never even hypothetically have aborted you. Love, Peter Thiel." That is an odd thing to write about your friend based on them sharing this with you. That is an odd line. Now, I will say that's not a cold statement. It's just weird, right? Like, that is in a way kind of a warm statement, right? So I don't know. It doesn't entirely comport with like Peter can't connect with people, but it definitely comports with like Peter doesn't quite talk like anyone else, right? Nobody else would say this to a friend.
Yeah. Unless he wrote in everybody else's yearbook, like, I would abort you.
I would have aborted you. That's everyone else's Peter Thiel signature.
Big red X.
Yeah. Now, Peter was accepted by Stanford and started his freshman year at the beginning of Reagan's second term. Now, Stanford at this period was a major source of thinkers and doers among the conservative movement. The Hoover Institution, which is a right-wing think tank on campus, gave the world Martin Anderson, who helped create Reaganomics, right? He's like the author of Reaganomics as a concept. Many institute fellows were members of the Reagan administration. Peter definitely seems to have like seen this as kind of maybe the path he wanted for himself. And even though what's interesting to me is because he has this sort of emotional need to be seen as a contrarian, as the guy going against the grain, he will always frame higher education and his time at Stanford as like this den of liberals and like leftist frivolity, right? Where it's like, this is the school that gave us the Reagan administration, right? Like, fucking Stanford is not a hotbed of leftists, you know? There's like liberals and leftists on campus and leftist clubs, but like one of the most influential conservative think tanks in the country is based out of Stanford, right? I think the main reason why Peter has to kind of characterize college this way is that he just doesn't like college, right? He doesn't like Stanford. And he primarily seems to dislike Stanford not because of a political thing, but because all of the kids there acted like kids, right? They're all teenagers. They're not quite grown up, which is what college students are. And this is annoying to Peter. One of his chief bugbears was that there was a campus hide and seek game, which made him very angry, right? The fact that other people are like, well, he's trying to learn playing hide and seek. Peter doesn't like this. He avoids most parties. He does not date. Now, he's gay, right? And that's certainly not nearly as acceptable a thing, even in a place like Stanford in this period of time. So it's not exactly weird. And that may play into kind of part of why he's so frustrated seeing all of his peers kind of date and socialize when, you know, that is not a thing that's safe for him. I think maybe that does play into it to some degree. Whenever he could, rather than hang out with anyone he met on campus, he would go back home to hang out with his old friends from high school, right? Now, one of his Stanford peers suggests that he viewed other kids at the school as deeply unserious. I think there's also an element of discomfort, insecurity, and meeting and trying to connect with new people. Whatever the case, Peter is the weird kid on campus. Every morning, he would leave his dorm room and walk to the water fountain to take a huge number of vitamins, one at a time. He seems to do this in a way that's like deliberately exhibitionist. Classmate Megan Maxwell alleges that he kind of does this to confront other kids, right? To set himself apart. Everyone else is partying and like drinking and doing drugs. And every morning, Peter gets out there and slowly takes all of his supplements so everyone can see him, right? Quote, "It was like a ritual," she told Chafkin. "He was a strange, strange boy." I don't think she's lying there.
Yeah.
He studied philosophy at Stanford, and this is as an undergrad, and was particularly drawn to the work of René Girard, a professor and theorist of social sciences. Girard was particularly focused on the psychology of desire, or why people want things and how they decide they want things. From a 2021 article in The New Yorker by Anna Wiener, Thiel was particularly taken with Girard's concept of mimetic desire. Man is the creature who does not know what to desire, and he turns to others in order to make up his mind, Girard wrote. We desire what others desire because we imitate their desires. Mimetic desire involves a surrender of agency. It means allowing others to dictate one's wants, and the theory goes can foster envy, rivalry, infighting, and resentment. It also, Girard wrote, leads to acts of violent scapegoating, which serve to preclude further mass conflicts by unifying persecutors against a group or individual. He thinks this is how people work, right? That like, people's desires are largely based on this kind of like herd mentality, right? We're imitating other people's desires that we see. We like surrender our agency to like let other people dictate wants for us. And this is kind of why scapegoating is natural and actually is kind of a necessary thing in order to avoid further mass violence, right? If you can scapegoat individuals for problems, you can avoid more widespread violence. I think one could kind of extrapolate this into Peter as a member of like the wealthy ruling class, seeing the scapegoating that conservatives do of migrants or trans people as a way to like avoid a potential, mass violence against his class, right? Like the wealthy. But maybe I'm reading a little bit too much into it there.
No,
but he's
the scapegoat author guy. He's also the violence and the sacred guy.
Mm-hmm.
Gerard, that actually makes so much sense.
It makes a lot of sense.
Yeah,
the fact that this gets brought, I mean, Thiel brings up Gerard a lot. There's a lot of writing Thiel has done where he quotes Gerard talking about mimetic desire. So it is not Chafkin and others, because I'm quoting directly from Anna's article here. Like they're not going out on a limb, connecting a lot of what he does to Chafkin. This is like a foundational part of his thinking.
He's the guy who wrote a book about like sacrifice rituals and. This makes sense.
I'm on board with that. I think we should do more human sacrifice in this country. I think we should. We need to be building more pyramids. We don't build enough. We built that one in where is it? Nashville, right? We should have a pyramid in every city, and we should sacrifice people on them. That's all I'm saying. No,
I'm
you're
more
on
of a
board
ziggurat
with this, right?
guy myself.
You're a ziggurat guy?
Yeah.
You've been gotten by big ziggurat, huh? The brick makers have you in their thrall.
I have, yeah.
There's more material in a ziggurat. That's all. That's why they want it.
Yeah, they're easy to walk up to.
Mm-hmm. They are easy to walk up.
Yeah, and then you can throw your human sacrifice off the top.
Yeah.
Once you do. Yeah.
I mean, I do like a ziggurat. A solid ziggurat, a good old-fashioned step pyramid. Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Now, the concept of mimetic desire and the potential use of violent scapegoating would remain focuses of Peter's thinking on human nature, business, and politics up to the present day. 2 years into his time on campus, he started a monthly magazine, the Stanford Review, with one of his high school friends who went to college with him. The Stanford Review was a right-wing rag. It featured articles accusing professors of being closet Marxists, columns complaining about non-white authors in a Western culture class, and some very weird takes on the AIDS epidemic. Here's an excerpt from a column in New York Magazine by Chafkin. The first issue featured a satirical column, Confessions of a Sexual Deviant, about a young straight man who'd chosen to be celibate. According to the review, it was almost impossible to visit a men's restroom without witnessing a gay sex act, or to cross the quad without having fistfuls of free condoms pressed into your hand. In 1987, presenting homosexuality as an addiction, a columnist wrote that unnatural gay men had yielded to temptation so many times that the fires of lust burned within them, making it indeed difficult for them to control themselves. During Thiel's last year on campus, his close friend and review collaborator Keith Raboy stood outside the home of a Stanford residential fellow and shouted at the top of his lungs, "F word, you are going to die of AIDS. You are going to get what's coming to you." 2 days later, the review published The Rape Issue, with an impassioned defense of a student who'd pleaded no contest to statutory rape. So...
What?
He's the guy that he's going to be the rest of his life by 87.
Holy
we can
shit.
say that. There's a lot, and because Peter doesn't like to talk about, and I we'll talk about the Gawker stuff later. I actually think he's less in the wrong on that than he tends to be painted as, which is not to say that he's in the right there, but like he doesn't like talking about his sexuality. I get there's like a decent little chunk of even up to this day. And this is not exactly Peter's kind of thing, but I've interviewed a couple of like gay conservatives who are celibate. They're like Catholic. They accept that they're homosexual. They're open about that, but they think it's immoral to do anything about it because they're also extremely Catholic. And I see shades of that, at least in Peter's thinking here. Like the fact that he is putting out these articles about celibacy and about like the unnatural and like evil lusts of the gay community and like AIDS very much feels in line with that to me here, but we just don't get a ton of Peter himself talking about it. But you can see, like, he wouldn't be putting out these articles about like how AIDS is by this guy yelling about how like AIDS is your fault, right? If you're gay, if there wasn't an element of that in his thinking, right?
Yeah, this young man is extremely broken and confused.
Yeah, I mean, this is the fact that you're defending a guy who pled no contest to statutory rape, the anger about condoms over a guy who pled no contest to statutory rape. I don't know.
Yeah. Now, look, I mean, you don't want to judge someone too much by their, corny campus newspaper.
If they move on from it. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I say this as someone who started a corny campus newspaper.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's really, it's really beyond the pale. And it does seem to connect to who this dude is later, which is like this weird, like there's so much like hate, both internal and external, happening.
You really get why he becomes the guy he becomes, because so much of Peter's modern politics is the right wing hating the normies, like fuck the normies kind of politics. And like a big part of just how much anger there is at Marxists on campus. They're handing out columns on the quad. It's just like whatever he sees the people around him are fine with makes him angry. There is a degree of that in being this kind of dude in Stanford in this period of time. Now, the late 1980s are a period in which public rage over the injustices of apartheid had started to reach a fever pitch too, right? This is one of the most kind of salient public issues at the time, is like the entire Western international community is kind of lining up against the apartheid regime. There were regular protests on campus and calls to divest the school from South African financial interests. According to one source, Peter was not supportive of this. He was very angry that all of the kids on campus are anti-South Africa. And I want to read now, this is a very interesting chapter of his life, from a Medium post by one of his classmates at Stanford, Julia Lythcott-Hames. She wrote this about an encounter in 1986, and this is going to be very relevant. Julie is a black woman. We ran in different circles. His fiercely libertarian views were often a topic of conversation among those of us living in Branner Hall. One day I heard a rumor that Peter defended apartheid, which was then still the law of the land in South Africa, which I found morally repugnant. To know that a fellow student, a dorm mate for that matter, might defend such a brutally oppressive race-based caste system gave me the willies. But I wanted to give Peter the benefit of the doubt, so I mustered the courage to go to his room and ask him about it. He said, with no facial affect, that apartheid was a sound economic system working efficiently and moral issues were irrelevant. He made no effort to even acknowledge the pain the concept of apartheid could possibly raise for me, a black woman. So it's very in line with the kind of it works economically. The system is economically successful, and that's all that matters. The moral issues are irrelevant, right? Just completely that kind of guy.
I mean, how much of this is just that's my dad?
Yeah, well, I mean, how much of it is that's my dad? And just like this reflexive contrarian thing. All of these kids hate South Africa. I've been there. I know it's actually a good system because it works economically. Worked for my dad. Yeah. Yeah. Great stuff. When Julie posted this in 2016, it went sort of viral, and Peter issued a response through a spokesperson. Peter has no recollection of a stranger demanding his views on apartheid. He has never supported it, but he can easily see how a conversation might be misremembered 30 years later. And that's interesting. I don't recall talking to this stranger, but you can easily see how someone could misremember the conversation that I'm not sure happened.
Yeah. If I did it.
If I did it, yeah.
Apartheid edition.
Now, obviously, I don't know that Julie's recollection of events from 30 years ago is perfectly accurate. No one's are ever, right? But there is some outside corroboration for aspects of Julie's story. And I'm going to quote from an article in NPR here. Lythcott-Hames' account of Thiel's opinion about apartheid was backed up by Megan Maxwell, a freelance editor who also attended Stanford with Thiel. Maxwell, who was also an African-American, told NPR that in a separate incident, Thiel also told her that morality and governments shouldn't be connected and that you shouldn't judge a government based on whether it fits your view of morality. I don't know, man. Shouldn't you? like, isn't that part of how you should judge a government? Whether or not you think it's moral?
So wait, he's doing anti-morality or amorality on the one hand.
That shouldn't matter. It should just matter if it's economically efficient, right?
And then, but then gays are bad on the other hand.
Yeah, he's publishing other people who are writing about the immorality of homosexual life, right?
Right.
Yeah, I think that would be interesting, Peter. And part of what's going on here is like Peter is an outspoken Christian, and he is up to the present day, and that means some very odd things for a guy who is also like gay and a libertarian. You know, that's going to like
wait,
all those
he's an
things.
Outspoken Christian who doesn't believe that we should judge things by their morality.
That's what he says here, because he definitely seems to, in other instances, believe that we should judge things based on whether or not they're his definition of moral. You know, part of, and this is not just Peter, this is everyone, he's not consistent. Nobody is, right? Like this, we found a point of inconsistency here, sure. Now, Peter's present political situation, I will say, when we're talking about his classmates talking about 30 years ago, you should always read any quote about someone like this with the perspective of like the fact that his modern day political stances might be deep, like post facto coloring people's recollections of him, right? Sure. As a kid, because nobody's memories are perfect. So I did go looking for other accounts of the man at Stanford, and I found a few from former classmates of his on Quora. In one post, Chris Gray recalled, he was very interested in constitutional law and wanted to clerk at the Supreme Court. He was serious about religion. He went to the gym frequently to work out. Peter was always what I would describe as thoughtful and civil in his dealings with people, which is unusual in my experience. He had a stubborn side and did not typically change his mind about things. And, you know, maybe he was more friendly to this guy because this guy was more simpatico to his beliefs, but a lot of that seems like pretty consistent with other stories you get about Peter. Chris also recalled that Peter was very interested in another thinker, Leo Strauss. I recall the most interesting thing Peter said was derived from his understanding of Strauss, which was that there are not really any facts, just values. Another classmate, Lance Ishimoto, recalls Peter as an outspoken conservative who was a part of the Federalist Society and hung out with Greg Kennedy, Justice Kennedy's son. He went on to note, his entrepreneurial nature was also apparent from the way he and a friend decided to make their own version of Stanford Law sweatshirts and sell them at a price, $40, that was cheaper than the official ones at the bookstore, $75. Yeah, so there you go. Peter got his BA in 1989 and then got his law degree from Stanford Law. Now, that's quite a lot of schooling for a guy that as an adult would declare his own personal war on the higher education system. From Chafkin and others, it certainly sounds as if some of this was related to his annoyance with liberal classmates, but I wonder if a larger reason wasn't the disillusionment he felt later because of his law career, which, as a spoiler, doesn't work out the way he'd hoped. As Chris recalled, Peter was obsessed in this period as he's getting out of college, as he's finishing his law degree. The thing that he wants for his life is not to be an entrepreneur or a founder. It is to clerk for the Supreme Court. And one kind of assumes he's maybe hoping to eventually get on the Supreme Court. George Packer, writing for the New Yorker, states, quote, after graduating from law school and clerking for a federal judge, he was turned down for a Supreme Court clerkship by Justices Antonin Scalia and Anthony Kennedy. And if we're looking for like the inciting incident of like Peter's turn towards evil, for like his desire to destroy higher education, what makes him choose the path of becoming like a corporate founder, a venture capitalist, this is why, right? His first choice is he wants to be working in and around and with the Supreme Court, and he gets shot down. He's not this guy who has always been the best at everything isn't good enough for Scalia or Kennedy, right? And that's kind of what sets him on the path that he's going to go down later, at least according to a lot of people who knew him at this point in time.
Wow. Like Scalia, the font of Scalia of so much not good, does one good thing and it backfires utterly and completely and fucks us all.
Yeah, and I wonder if it's just that they could see because like even if you're Scalia, right, you don't really want to work every day with a reflexive contrarian, right? Like that's not a guy who's always, his whole thing is always, I have to be doing a different thing than everyone else. Like I have to be smarter than everyone else who has to be wrong and I have to be right. You don't want to work with that guy. Like that guy sucks.
Or maybe just his work wasn't good enough, you know?
Yeah. Or maybe his law shit wasn't good enough. Right. Like, I don't know. I'm not a lawyer. I don't have the ability to judge Peter Thiel's like writing on law. But whatever the case, because he's the valedictorian of his high school. He does very well at Stanford. He's friends with Kennedy's kid. He's doing everything he should be doing to make this work. Right. And it just doesn't work for him. Right. And that does seem to be like the thing that fucks him up. Anyway, Noah, how are you feeling about Peter so far?
I feel like right now we're at kind of like only somewhat harmful, toxic nerd stage. And if the story ended there, it'd be like, okay, fine, you know, go ahead, buddy. Now you get to grow up and live a normal life. Like
now
I feel like
you can be a person. Yeah.
Like I feel like there's still like, you know, the fate is not set at this point. Right.
Yeah, I would say the fate is not set. There's a lot of ways that this guy could go after this, but I also feel like you can tell a guy who runs that kind of newspaper and whose goal is to work for Scalia or Kennedy probably isn't going to wind up being like a guy you'd want to have dinner with, you know? Like
no, but this isn't behind the guys you don't want to have dinner with.
No. We're not guaranteed he's going to become a bastard yet. So we'll be hitting that increasingly by part 2, and I'm excited for you to see where Peter goes after this. Noah, where are you going to go after this?
I feel like I'm going to have like several shots of whiskey after this. I feel like I need it.
Yeah, it's 1 p.m., so that's the right time for a nice stiff drink.
It's 4 o'clock over here, man.
Yeah. It's 4 o'clock somewhere. That's why I can start drinking. All right. Well, I'm going to go listen to some Jimmy Buffett. You also go listen to some Jimmy Buffett, and then come back on Thursday for part 2.
We're going to need 6 drinks if it's Jimmy Buffett.
Behind the Bastards is a production of Cool Zone Media. For more from Cool Zone Media, visit our website, coolzonemedia.com, or check us out on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. Behind the Bastards is now available on YouTube. New episodes every Wednesday and Friday. Subscribe to our channel, youtube.com/@BehindTheBastards.
Looking for your next go-to smoke shop? Stop scrolling. I've got you. Headshop.com is the #1 online smoke shop, already trusted by over 100,000 happy smokers, just like you. They've got it all. Dab rigs, vaporizers, glass bongs, smoking pipes, even THCA flower, all in one place. Need a new daily driver? Grab a smooth glass bong or a classic smoking pipe. More of a concentrate fan? Their dab rigs, e-rigs, and wax accessories are designed for smoother, harder-hitting sessions. And yes, they've even got legal THC flower. Best part? Every order ships fast and discreet, which is why thousands of smokers keep coming back. So don't waste time hopping between shops. Shop the best in dab rigs, vaporizers, glass bongs, smoking pipes, and THCA flower right now at Headshop.com, the #1 online smoke shop. Headshop.com has what you need. Check it out today. Oh, and because you're listening right now, you get 10% off your next order when you use the coupon code HSHOP at checkout. Go to headshop.com now and smoke smarter.
Then she says, have you seen a photo of my son? And I'm like, who is this person?
Welcome to the Boys and Girls Podcast. Arranged marriage is basically a reality show, and you're auditioning for your soulmate. And who's judging? Only your entire family. I sacrificed myself to this ancient tradition, hoping to find love the right way. And instead, I found chaos, comedy, and a lot of cringe. Listen to Boys and Girls on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
You know Roald Dahl. He thought up Willy Wonka and the BFG. But did you know he was a spy? In the new podcast, The Secret World of Roald Dahl, I'll tell you that story and much, much more.
What?
You probably won't believe it either.
Was this before he wrote his stories? It must have been.
Okay, I don't think that's true.
I'm telling you, the guy was a spy.
Listen to The Secret World of Roald Dahl on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hi, listeners. I'm Anna Sinfield, the host of The Girlfriend Spotlight, and I've got some great interviews coming your way. I'm also excited to tell you that you can now get access to all episodes of season 1, 2, 3, and 4 of The Girlfriends, and every single episode of The Girlfriend Spotlight 100% ad-free, and 1 week early through the iHeart True Crime Plus subscription, available exclusively on Apple Podcasts. Plus, you'll get access to other chart-topping true crime shows you love, like Betrayal, Paper Ghosts, Piketon Massacre, The Brothers Ortiz, What Happened in Nashville, Hell and Gone, The Godmother, and more. So don't wait. Head to Apple Podcasts, search for iHeart True Crime Plus, and subscribe today.
When segregation was a law, one mysterious black club owner, Charlie Fitzgerald, had his own rules.
Segregation in the day, integration at night.
It was like stepping in another world.
Was he a businessman, a criminal, a hero?
Charlie was an example of power. They had to crush him.
Charlie's Place, from Atlas Obscura and Visit Myrtle Beach. Listen to Charlie's Place on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
This is an iHeart podcast. Guaranteed Human.